Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the magazine show style of Road to Cheltenham. It's the traditional show that we have the Thursday prior to the festival itself. Of course, I'm joined by Ruby Walsh. Something of a different show tonight.
Very different show, Lydia. Enjoyable one, I hope.
Yeah, we've got some great stuff coming up for you. There's a mixture of now horses, now people. We're going to reminisce a little bit, and we're also going to have a look at a bit of some data and stats, and also consider fully a race that we haven't focused on in the series. So all of that coming up in the next hour and a half. But first, we need to talk some news. If the vibes are right in terms of the betting, it's looking like Lossiemouth is going to be heading towards the Mayor's Hurdle rather than the Champion Hurdle. Now, her owner, Rich Ritchie, has said that a decision will be made at the weekend when he talks to Willie. But what's your view?
What is my view? I don't have an already strong view, to be honest with you. I always felt that she had to improve to be a champion hurdle horse. And I suppose if you look at it, the big question mark is, has she improved? The potential was there, but has she delivered? Is she really a champion hurdle horse?
Doesn't she have to run in a champion hurdle to find out?
No, I don't think she does, actually. I think you found out at Kempton, Constitution Hill wasn't that straight. He'd been off the track for a long time, and she wasn't able for him. And unfortunately, for my money, she fell a hurdle too soon at Leopardstown to see if she had improved. So that brings doubt, I suppose. And it'll be up to Willie and Rich Ritchie what they decide to do, whether they run her or not. She's third favourite in the champion hurdle. She's favourite in another race. And whatever they decide to do will be their decision. But to me, she had to prove she was a champion hurdle horse. And as of yet, she hasn't proved she is.
She's also the horse that's got closest to Constitution Hill ever so far.
You can look at that two ways. She got very close to Constitution Hill, and she only just beat Burdett Road, who made a mistake. Which way do you want to look at it?
Well, I suppose I'm really thinking about the fact that this has been a 2-year plan. We've heard of that many times. We've heard of it from Rich Ritchie and also from Willie Mullins. And
I'm glad you didn't say you heard it from me.
As far as I know, I don't think you did say that.
No, I didn't.
But there didn't seem to be any wavering after she was beaten at the Christmas Hurdle. Didn't seem to be any wavering after she fell at the Dublin Racing Festival. You reported that she's come out of that okay.
Yeah, she schooled really well on Monday, I think it was. Paul was in to school her. I wasn't there now, but the lads told me she schooled really well. But no, to be honest with you, Lydia, I don't know. And people say, well, you should know. You're one of Willie Mullins' assistants. I don't have any involvement in making decisions for Lossiemouth. The decisions are easy for her. It's the lesser horses that I get involved with.
Let's see it from Paul Tannen's point of view, which also has a knock-on, I think, to Rich Ritchie's point of view. So Paul Tannen obviously has to decide between the two. He personally is not on record of saying that he's going one way or another yet, and we know that he would try and leave it as long as possible. But wouldn't he be human and a competitor, want to have, rather than have a chance in the champion hurdle and a good chance of winning the Mayor's Hurdle with Jada Gruchy, as opposed to a very strong, according to Timeform, £9 ahead chance with Lossiemouth of winning a Grade 1 hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival?
Absolutely. I know if I was Paul Townend, that is exactly what I would be doing, and that is probably what I did. And that's hence I don't get involved in these discussions. But of course you would. That's human nature. Why wouldn't you?
So flip it round to Rich Ritchie hearing that. So the phone call comes, OK, Paul's chosen state man. Who do you want on Lossiemouth? This is no negative against whoever that rider might be. It might be Danny Mullins, but wouldn't you be human to be thinking, OK, so the stable jockey isn't riding my horse, but he would ride her in the Mayor's race? Yeah,
but you could flip that two ways. So if you rang Joe Donnelly and told him Ruby Walsh is riding Bell's Hill in the Gold Cup, what do you want to do with the album photo? He was lucky he didn't listen to the stable jockey.
That's true. I would be strongly arguing for sticking to the plan. This has been the plan. You know, Rich Ritchie's often talk about the competitive buzz that he gets from horse racing is the reason why he loves it so much. You know, you can go and be, I don't know, odds on to win a Mayor's Hurdle, which you've done before, with a horse that we still don't know exactly what's under the bonnet, or you can go and be part of the champion hurdle. I mean, for example, Burdett Road, they've performed a U-turn as well, but in a positive way, in the way that I think fans would see it. They were looking to go from the champion hurdle to the county. They've had a proper think about it. They think they've got a chance of hitting the frame, and they want to be a part of this race.
Yeah, that's, look, fair play to them. Like, if I was with Burdett Road, I would have gone to Ascot with him at Christmas for the handicap. and be going up in grade then. I think by running in the Christmas hurdle, he probably left that 150 grand handicap hurdle at Ascot behind him. But that's how you view it, how you see it, and that's the brilliance of the game. Everyone has a different opinion. But for me, there's always been a difference between potential and delivery. And whilst Lossiemouth had the potential in the couple of opportunities she's had against the champion hurdle horses, thus far she hasn't delivered. Now, if you want to roll the dice again, that's fair enough. I'm more of a prove it to me person than a believer, and I haven't changed my tune. I've been saying that about her all year, and even at home she has to go and prove that she's at the next level, and unfortunately because of the fall the last day, she hasn't proved it yet.
She hasn't. My argument would be you
give
go
her a
to
chance.
Champion Hurdle to find out. Absolutely, give her the chance.
And that's and whenever Rich and Willie decide, that's what'll happen. And to give her a chance, give her a chance. But look, I've been beating the drum for brighter days ahead for the last couple of weeks, and I think she's still the one to beat. I think she's the one. If you're offering me, no, that's a wrong statement because I have no interest in riding any of them. But I do think brighter days ahead will be the one in the Champion Hurdle.
Just to briefly round up a couple other items of news, sticking with Rich Ritchie and Willie Mullins, Gaelic Warrior wasn't among the 5 days for the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Do you expect him to turn up in the 5 days for the Ryanair? I
think he'd be left in the Ryanair, but I'll still be surprised if he turns up and runs. I think he'll leave him in. It's a day later. He just hasn't sparked yet, but it's not that long ago. Fatur couldn't get out of his own way at this time of year, and he won a Ryanair. But
well, yeah, there is that precedent.
But I'd be surprised if he runs.
Yeah, I think I would be too, because Willie Mullins was saying if it's going to be anything, it's going to be the Queen Mother Champion Chase. And the other item of news that you need to be brought up to date with, if indeed you haven't seen it already, is that James Bowen, unfortunately, isn't going to be able to ride at the festival. His appeal against his whip ban was unsuccessful. He was arguing that the 9th strike was purely for safety purposes, and the panel didn't buy that at all. So he misses the whole of the festival, unfortunately.
I probably would have done the same thing myself.
well, yes, but the panel even considered retaining the deposit, but in the end they did give the deposit back. They felt that there was really little realistic chance of the appeal being successful. Right, so you're all up to date, so it is time for us to welcome in the first of our guests, and I am delighted to say that Gavin Cromwell, the 6 times Cheltenham Festival winner, is joining us here this evening. Gavin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, Lydia, thank you.
Where are you? I can't work out the background of where you are.
It's not a great line. Sorry, I'm sitting in my car on the way to a Cheltenham preview.
Ah, right, okay. Which Cheltenham preview is that?
What was that, sorry?
Which Cheltenham preview are you heading to?
It's in Edenderry, yes. It's the very first one I've ever done, and I've been doing it for quite a while now.
Okay, well, I wish you luck with that. They tend to be rowdy and interesting affairs. The first question I really want to ask you about is, I know the way you're thinking. There's rumours going around, stronger rumours, that he might be supplemented for the Gold Cup. Is he going to be?
Yeah, it's looking like it. He's going to work tomorrow morning, and I think all being well, he will be supplemented on Saturday.
And tell me about this horse, because, you know, initially you were saying not the Grand National, that he was entered in the Grand National. He wasn't entered in the Gold Cup, and now he could be supplemented for it. Is this a horse whose progress is outstripping your expectations?
Yeah, I suppose it is. And, you know, his run the last day was very, very good. He was only beaten 7.5 lengths in Leopardstown. You know, it was a really good run, and we're happy with him since. So, you know, the Gold Cup, obviously Galloping the Champs is going to be very difficult to beat or take on, but you know, it has cut up out from that.
Gavin, Ruby here as well. Would you be happy with how he's jumping? Do you think he's improved? Is he getting a bit quicker, slicker? He got himself out of the Kim Muir early last year. You won't be able to do that in the Gold Cup, will he?
No, absolutely not. I think it was third last in Leopardstown he was a bit sticky at, but out from that, his jumping has improved a lot this year. But it'll need to be.
Stamina is no issue for him. Obviously the Kim Muir was 3 1/4. Is stamina his real forte?
Yeah, definitely. look, it's not shaping like it's going to be slow ground, but slower ground would be certainly beneficial to him.
And do you think that it's going to be feasible to go for the Gold Cup and the Grand National, or is that the balance that you're having to weigh up?
Yeah, look, I suppose one step at a time, and we'll see how we get on with the Gold Cup. You know, he has to be supplemented first, and all things being well, he'll run. But I think Frank Berry said today, and rightly so, I think there definitely will need to be soft in the description for him to run.
Okay. Thinking about your other Cheltenham Festival winner of last year, that's Limerick Lake. She's one of 5 that you've currently got in the Mrs. Paddy Power's Mare's Chase. Would it be fair to say that she hasn't really been in the same form this season?
Yeah, absolutely. For whatever reason, we can't really put our finger on it, but she worked well last week, so look, I'm optimistic is all I can be, but it just depends on what mare shows up. She definitely has the ability.
She looks a little bit awkward last time, even, and you know she has flashed her tail in victory in the past as well.
Yeah, listen, she is very marish, but she's also very talented as well. So if you can get her on a go one day, she's a good mare.
So how many mares do you think you might run in that race, Gavin?
We could potentially run 4, to be honest. Only by night. Look, it's hard to see. You know, it's hard to see her beating Majbur. You would really need Majbur to do something terribly wrong for her to beat him. I think she'd run really well in it. She'd have a very good place chance. But you know, on drying ground, I think the 2.5 would be no problem to her in the Mare's Chase. And you know, she's been foot perfect this year, and I think she'd have a very good chance in it. She's
jumped really well. She's taken defences so well, but I was thinking that she was a bang 2-miler. I take the point of her, the ground drying might help her, but aren't you tempted by the Arkle? There could just be 3 or 4 runners in that race, and what happens if Majbur tits up? What will you be feeling then?
Yeah, I know, but listen, running the race you can win, and you know, I'm not saying we're definitely not going to go to the Arkle. I need to speak with the owners, but I think she has a right good chance of winning the Mare's Chase. You know, on merit rather than going to the Arkle and looking for something to happen to Majbur.
Do you think, Gavin, when she won at Exeter, she was pulling herself up and she was in front? Some would argue maybe she wasn't staying, but do you think she was just bowing idle with Keith?
I'd say she was, and they got racing very early. They went a right good gallop, and I think just in the last 20 yards, I think she was picking up again. I've no doubt that she will stay. She won 2 bumpers. She won a listed bumper in Navan on heavy ground, which you need to stay for, and I've no doubt she will.
We're just watching her there, and you can see her ears flicking forwards and backwards as she's crossing the line. I think she is idling. I really love this mare. So, mare number 3, would that be Bride's Hill?
Yeah, I know she's got beaten a couple of times this year, but on drying ground, she's really just coming to herself just of late, and I think she'd run a big race.
Was she a little bit too far back at Huntingdon last time?
She was, and to be fair to the winner picked up better than we thought she would, and certainly better than Keith thought she would on the day, and I suppose she was out sprinted.
That's what I was going to ask. I was impressed with Telepathique. I was wondering, had you an excuse for Bride's Hill, or were you happy with her? Because I think she's flying completely under the radar, Telepathique.
Yeah, I think Bride's Hill could run really well. She seems to be in good form. So that leaves either Jeté Port or Bioluminescence. Who is mare number 4?
I'd say Jeté Port. I can't see Bioluminescence running with the forecast that there is. She needs proper soft or heavy ground.
She's a great mare, though, isn't she? I really like her. You're going to win a really good staying chase with her, aren't you?
Well, hopefully she's. That's what she is, staying chaser, and she relishes heavy ground.
And tell me about Jeté Port.
Listen, she's going to struggle at this level, and 2.5 could be a little bit far for her. But it'll be great for the syndicate to have a runner. She's been a great mare for them too, and hopefully, all things being well, she could run well and pick up some prize money.
I'm going to trip very quickly through your other runners at the festival, and I know, Ruby, that you like 6.5.
I do like 6.5, Gavin, and I know you like her as well. Is she in as good a form as she was going to Ferryhouse?
Yeah, I think she is, Ruby. We're happy with her. I know she's only had the one run over hurdles, but she was very professional and she's jumped well at home too. So, we're pretty hopeful.
She stays really well, doesn't she?
She does. She's tough. She's got a great attitude. She's not very big, but she doesn't know it.
It's amazing how well she's taken to hurdles, isn't she? I mean, she was a pretty fast learner when she switched from bumpers to the flat. Even faster learner over hurdles.
Yeah, listen, she just has a great attitude, I suppose, and it is more jumping pedigree than a flat pedigree. So jumping was always going to be her game.
Then if we move to the juveniles, you've got Hello Neighbour, who is unbeaten. He's won a couple of times over hurdles, a couple of times on the flat, and last time you put a hood on and he seemed to settle it a bit better and see it out in a better race. Are you anticipating the circumstances of the Triumph Hurdle to bring out a little bit more in him?
Yeah, I'd be hoping that it's a proper run race, and as the Triumph Hurdle normally is. And that'll help him settle better. He's been settling very well at home of late, so I think he's maturing all the time, and I'm not too concerned about that end of it. And he jumps well, so obviously the two English horses look very talented, but we don't have a line of form from the Irish to the English ones, so we'll find out on Friday week.
We don't have a line of form, but we kind of have ratings. Obviously, East India Dock is rated 147. So when you look at Total Luck and the mark he has in the Fred Winter and you equate that to Hello Neighbour, are you confident enough you could maybe get there on ratings anyway?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a talented horse, and off flat ratings too. He's rated 97 as well. So. He shouldn't be too far away from them.
Do you think the handicapper was a bit harsh on Total Luck, or are you just taking your medicine?
Well, sure, listen, I don't have a choice anyway. I think he has been harsh on him. He'll need to jump an awful lot better. We have schooled him with cheap pieces, and I think it's definitely helped him. But he's thrown away a couple of races just with his jumping into late on. So if he jumps, he has a chance.
He was sort of backing off his hurdles in the earlier part of this Punchestown race before finishing very strongly. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and if you go back to the Cheltenham race, he just wasn't the bravest of the last couple and missed them, and he'll need to be sharper.
And how about Now Is the Hour, who ran really eye-catchingly when fourth at Navan and went straight to the fore of the National Hunt Chase market as a result of that performance. We know he's a talented horse. He was a Grade 2 novice hurdle winner. What have you made of him over fences?
Yeah, he jumps well, and he will stay, no problem. Slower ground would be more beneficial to him, but it is what it is, and he will be running. Again, I suppose where we are with the handicap, I'm not sure, but he's in good form, and hopefully he's a good chance anyway.
Yeah, I thought you might bring up the ground, because all of his ground is on soft, all of his form is on soft or heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, I know people look back to his Grade 2 win over hurdles last year. On heavy ground. Listen, he was a good winner on the day, but I don't know. The race did fall apart that day as well. I think the handicapper may be a little bit harsh on him, but this is in good form, and hopefully he won't be too far away.
Okay, and then you've got a couple of runners in the cross country. Stumptown, who was a winner over the course in December, and of course Vanillier, who's one of the horses that have brought you festival success in the past. How would you assess each of their chances? Yeah,
Stumptown has really taken to it. handicapper certainly thinks so as well. I never thought Stumptown would be off a mark of 157, but he is anyway, and hopefully he can outrun it. I suppose the handicap ratings don't come into play as much in the cross country as they would in your conventional handicaps, but still he has top weight to carry. He's in good form, and he's really taken to it and he loves it.
Yeah, I was eyeing that. I was thinking about him conceding £3 to Galvin and thinking, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I would never have thought that he'd have to do that, but it is what it is.
And how about Vinilier? Last time we saw him, he had some blinkers on, didn't he, at Punchestown, and he seemed to attack the fences a little bit more, go with a bit more zest. Yeah.
Obviously, he's getting a bit of weight off Stumptown and many more of them. Yeah, he showed great attitude the last day. Doesn't jump just as well as Stumptown, but he has taken to it, and he's in good form. So I'm hoping he won't be too far off.
And we know he's got ability. He's got Grade 1 ability under that, and he's got the second in the Grand National. I know he doesn't really sort of get away from conventional fences that quickly, but this is something different. They don't really go very quick in the cross country, and he can stay with them, and he's still got a lot of ability.
Yeah, he has, and delighted to see him back in form. You know, he's bouncing at home as well.
Obviously, Keith will probably ride Stumptown. So who do you think might ride Vinilier?
I'd say Sean will ride him.
Sean Flanagan. I think he's a cracking chance. Sean rode him in the National when he was second, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
While we're on jockeys, how are you splitting up the jockeys for the Paddy Power Mares Chase?
That all has to be sorted out yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest.
Have you got a gut feeling which way Keith is favouring?
I think he's very undecided.
Fair enough. Okay, I won't keep pushing, Gavin. How about Will the Wise, who won the qualifier at Naas last time? Really enjoying the test of stamina, getting on top late. How do you see him for the Pertemps?
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. He had a hard race on heavy ground, but he seems to have come out of it well. So, yeah, listen, it remains to be seen, but he stays well. I think a little bit of nicer ground would actually help him, and he does enjoy it. So, yeah, hopefully he's going there with a chance.
And I'm not going to take you through exhaustive list of your many, many, many other entries left over the 4 days. Can I invite you to pick one out that we haven't highlighted to you that you think has got a strong chance?
One dark one, I think, is Path to Row. We'll probably go for the plate. First time up at the trip, and I think it's going to bring about improvement.
Path to Row?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, is that... You know that at this Cheltenham Festival preview night, you're going to have to give your best bet. Is that going to be your best bet?
Yeah, we'll probably go with that. So,
I'm just prepping you for the ordeal ahead. Gavin, thank you very much for pulling over in your car, sparing the time to talk to us so informatively about your festival runners. Good luck this evening, and much more importantly, good luck next week.
Thanks a million. Thank you.
See you then. Thank you. So, we learned some cheek pieces on Total Look for the Fred Winter, which I think is important to know. Yeah, I hope Joseph O'Brien puts a bear on Beyond Your Dreams as well. But he hasn't put me off Vinilier. I like Vinilier getting £10 off Stumptown. I think that's interesting. Yeah, and he is, if you're looking at class, you're looking at him, you're looking at Galvin. Yeah. You are, but look, Stumptown, then again, as an H-Road, maybe he hasn't quite reached his ceiling yet. There's an opportunity, maybe a possibility he's a better horse than he's shown us. But yeah, he's a good team, Gavin, hasn't he? He really has. I mean, it's really it's big and it's strong as well. It's got some really good chances. We'll be hearing later in the show from Timeform's Dan Barber, who will be assessing the strength of trainers' squads for the Cheltenham Festival next week, comparing them to their odds and what's really expected from them and what he thinks might happen. I've got a sneaky feeling he might think Gavin might go well. The mayor's conundrum is interesting. That only by night decision is interesting. He doesn't at all seem tempted by the Arca really at all in that conversation.
He doesn't, and look, I know Keith won the race last year on Limerick Lace, and it's often hard to get off a horse who you won a race on a year before, but she doesn't look to be in form at all, and only by night looks to be the one that is improving. And since Gavin has switched her to that race, I've kind of been thinking, well, he has a handle on what's required to beat Dino Blue and Allegory de Vassy. He's aligned through Bride's Hill as to what telepathic is. I think it's interesting that he's running only by night.
I think it is. I think she's very talented. And I suppose in many ways, with having that many runners, you can potentially, to some degree, influence the way the race is run in the way that he did with Limerick Lace last year.
Yeah, possibly.
And in Dinah Blue and Allegory de Vassy, you know, is that their best trip, do you think?
I think both their best trip is 2 miles. So you could stretch them both of them out at 2.5, but that's the distance of the race, and it's the right race for the two of them. You couldn't see either really having a chance in a Grand Annual and definitely having no chance in a Champion Chase.
Okay. So that is Gavin Cromwell and his fantastic team. Next up, though, we have a very special Analyse This from the man on my left, and he'll be focusing on the Ryanair.
So we all expect Ile Francais to run in the Ryanair Chase next week, and game or gallant front runners like him have had success in the race in the past. But where do horses dominate a Ryanair Chase from? Well, actually they don't dominate it from flagfall. This was Vatour many years ago. He actually was sat 6th early on, and Allaho sat down the inside of Min. Uxie Zonja was right on the pace, but it's this bend after the third fence down into the home straight to the 2 mile start where horses have come to the fore in this race. Allaho and Min got going that part of the race, and then the bend into the back straight. Allaho and Min, again, they stretch the field, and most of the horses behind them are going as fast as they can. That's where Undersow picked it up as well, running away from the stands on the downhill, and good jumping down the back straight kept them in it. But the last 4 fences become very important to front runners like these, like Ile Francais will be, or Ile Francais. Undersow pinged the 4th last, but also the 3rd last. So too did Allaho, who was brilliant at the 3rd last, and that doesn't give the horses behind a chance to get on your tail. Now, if you thought Ile Francais could jump the last 4 fences as well as Undersow did the year he won it, he would take some pegging back. This is Undersow, the 2nd last, and he was as brave at it again at the line. Now, he was on fumes from the last fence to the line, but the speed he'd gone through the race and the way he jumped the last 4 allowed him to get home. It is on the new course, but on good to soft ground, if you can get running after the 3rd fence and again away from the stands, use the undulations to get running and then roll off the top of the hill, you need a fair one to catch you.
So do you think those are the tactics that James Reevely can execute on Ile Francais?
Yeah, people will go with him across the middle over the first 3 fences. It's just that Ile Francais won't slow down from the fence 3 to fence 4. He will roll down the hill and be able to maintain that speed. He might slow down at the last fence for a little bit as he climbs away from the stands, but he'd roll into the back straight, lie on his neck. Hope you keep meeting them long and catch me if you can, lads.
Now, we know from his Corto Star win that he's actually a strong stayer at 3 miles. Do you see any issue about how do you sort of translate that Kempton 3 mile flat track form to undulating 2 mile 5 form for the Ryanair?
I don't. I guess the one question mark you have with Ile Francais is the fact that he burst blood vessels in France. So that is the question mark that will forever be over him. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing on an undulating track. I do think you get chances to get breeders at Cheltenham. When you're climbing from fences 11, 12, 13, you get a chance to get a breeder up onto the top of the hill. Whereas in a level track like Kempton, you often don't get a chance to get a breeder.
So flat track, which is a lot of people have put this up against Ile Francais and said, you know, will he get the hill? I don't see that we have any evidence to suggest that that's a concern.
I don't think so. He has Auteuil form, hasn't he? Auteuil is very stiff, and he has Auteuil form, and I think once you use the undulations, and that's the downhills as well, once you use them correctly, you can negate them a little bit.
and often a worry with a sort of a horse that has grown up through the French system is that they might be a bit lower in terms of their jumping, and that might catch them out at Cheltenham. I haven't really seen that from Ille Francais. Is that something that worries you?
No, his runs at Kempton are pretty solid, and they are low and slick. They don't tend to bend their backs, but you don't need to anymore. Getting up in front does you nowadays.
And finally, do you think Factor File has actually got better form than Ille Francais?
Do I think Factor File is better form? I probably do. I think the John Durkin is stronger than the King George, in my opinion.
But I suppose he hasn't repeated that since, quite?
No, but Ille Francais has more... Is worse the right word? More worse form than Factor File.
Yes, OK, more patchy form than Factor File, yeah, whereas Factor File is more consistent. Yeah, I take that. And finally, sorry, I said and finally, I lied.
Really?
Yeah, really. You know me too well. Is this the right race? Because you were making a strong argument all the way through the series that he should run in the Champion Chase. Is this the right race? Can he win the Ryanair?
I think in the Champion Chase, you have John Bond to beat. I would always be in favour of taking on... I think there's a couple of horses you've got to take on the Ryanair, Factor File, Protectorat, even Jungle Boogie. I think there's a couple of horses in the Ryanair. I think you only have John Bond to beat the Champion Chase, so therefore I would have gone that way.
OK. So those are Ruby's thoughts for Analyse This on Ille Francais. In a few moments' time, we're going to be joined by Paige Fuller, the analyst from Race IQ.
They're off. Constitution Hill, one of the hurdling greats. Protectorat, Ray Dorney, Langadan. Alan King and Tom Cannon in the Arkle. Edwards no win. Tisdall is out in front for Harry Cobden and for Paul Nichols. Slade Steele, Gaelic Warrior. Stateman has his day in the sun.
Lossiemouth and Poulton and Banburn opens up. Factor File and Mark Walsh.
Captain Guinness, Chiuko pouring it on. This is the champion.
Claim your free Race IQ Cheltenham Festival preview pack now. The Race IQ pack previews all 12 Grade 1 Cheltenham Festival races across the 4 days. Race IQ combines GPS tracking data with race card and timing data to produce its high-quality metrics and insights. This year's guide highlights some key insights that we see as significant for the most fancied horses. Scan the QR code or visit racingtv.com/Race IQ Cheltenham to download your free pack today.
So I must urge you to do something that I've never done, which is namely scan a QR code off the TV. But honestly, that will be worth it. The Race IQ preview pack will be worth it. I've never done it. I know it's going to be worth it. Paige has joined us. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You looking forward to next week?
Yes, very much looking forward to it. More of my natural habitat than being on here right now.
You should have seen Paige's face as she walked into the studio. It's like she was coming to the guillotine or something.
That's how afraid she is of you.
Well, she think it's me that she's afraid of. Oh, right, OK. I know that she's equidistant between the two of us. Actually, she's slightly further away from me. Right, OK. The task that we gave to Paige was to come up with a couple of favourites that there might be some doubts about, according to the Race IQ data, and a couple of outsiders, according to the same data, that might be somewhat overlooked. So where are you starting, Paige?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to sort of say that this is my interpretation of the data as well. And, you know, now that all the metrics are available on the Racing TV website, like, hopefully I might see it this way, but lots of people will see it other ways. But my first sort of tidbit that I picked out was actually about T Hupu in the Stayers Hurdle, and I know that he's last year's winner. The division isn't the strongest, but I do think that there are signals that he could be opposed in that race. Look, there's not loads of pace on paper, but certainly last year there wasn't either, and it turned into a really big sprint at the end of the race. His top speed was actually the highest posted by any hurdler at Cheltenham last year. As you can see, that's 36 miles an hour, the only horse to break it. But you look at State Man, the champion hurdle winner, he only reached 33, 34 miles an hour. So, you know, if it was run at a stronger pace, would he have that turn of foot over three miles? Maybe not. So yeah, I think he's quite an interesting, you know, one to maybe think isn't as strong as he's looking in the markets.
How are you feeling about Chupu? Having done a couple of preview nights on the circuit, everyone wants to get Chupu. Everybody wants to get him.
Pardon me, because I can't find the one to get him with.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a huge problem. Home by the Lee is definitely a better horse at Navan, Leopardstown, tracks like that. And I heard Joseph O'Brien saying it, and actually I thought it was a brilliant point. At both of those tracks, the parade ring gate is after the winning post, whereas at Cheltenham, the parade ring gate is before the last hurdle. I thought it was a brilliant analogy of Home by the Lee. Rocky's Diamond was good in the Galmoy, but as a 5-year-old...
He can't jump.
I just think he'll be a better horse again next year anyway. He's just so young, but I just can't find the horse to turn Chupu over, and that's the reason I'm with him.
And then there's the ground element as well.
Yes.
The watering is being turned on at Cheltenham, and John Pullen has said that they're particularly focusing on the new course. This will be the first day of 2 that the new course is on, and his least good performance has been on good ground, according to Times on Timeform, in the Hatton's Grace. So that's another element to factor in.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, Home by the Lee certainly looked outpaced when he won last time, and then he's rattled home. And I think it's key for him that, you know, he has a pace to aim at. You know, he's not going to look pretty. But, you know, you look at Hupu's second or third or whatever, however he finished in 2023, like that year they had an FSP, he had an FSP of 102%, last year it's 108%. So again, that reflects like when it was a stronger run race, he got beaten by Side Burley. You know, he's a handicapper. So I don't know, Even's favourite for me, I'm not so sure.
Second or third was the nub of the post-race issue. In terms of how the race will be run, the Stayers Hurdle, Ruby, this can often be a paceless race. I mean, when Flooring Porter, one of his, I think it was his first Flooring Porter success, was a strongly run Stayers Hurdle, wasn't it?
And Flooring Porter was the pace in the race for a number of years, but I can't see a huge amount of pace in this division either. They didn't go quick in the Galmoy, they didn't go quick in the Cleve, they didn't go mad in the Long Walk.
That's right.
Where is the pace angle here? I don't see what horse it is, so I can't. Again, I don't see a really strong angle, and I just think Chupu will have the gears off the bend. The ground, yeah, I think that's a fair argument to make against them, though.
Okay, and that would be an issue for the Wall Park, I would have thought as well. You know, they're choosing between the Pertem that's carrying a lot of weight or go for the Stayers Hurdle. He needs a strongly run race, surely.
He got completely outpaced in Ascot, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looked anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Right, so we're going to go with an outsider. This is relative terms because obviously there aren't many runners in the Arkle, but a horse that might be being underestimated is, for you, Django Bay.
Yeah, I definitely think that people are sort of overlooking him. Like, don't get me wrong, he was beaten in the Scilly Isles. Like, you know, everything else has come in off the back of Grade 1 wins. But look, he was a superior hurdler to Lodesud, who's second favourite. And actually, his jumping has improved for a fence. Like, his jump index has improved from 7.3 to 8.2. And you look at his jumping performance at Cheltenham, first time out over fences, 8.8. Like, it was a very, very good round of jumping. At Sandown, he wasn't quite at the same level, but still a very strong round. And, you know, he travelled so powerfully through that race. Like, I think that actually dropped back to 2 miles. We know it's going to be a strongly run race in the Arkle because you've got Madgebury, you've got Lodesud, there's going to be plenty of pace. And actually, we know he's got the stamina for further. So, you know, why wouldn't he be in the mix for an Arkle this year where there aren't many runners?
I hope you're wrong.
I was also interested in the what you prepared for this race about Lodesud, because the perception is, and certainly if we look at him in ratings terms, that he's improved from going from hurdles to fences, but the jump index says something else.
Yeah, Lodesud's a really interesting horse because I think the style of race over fences suits him better. Like, I think where he can fill his lungs over his obstacles, and the pace is just probably fractionally slower. Like, I don't think he's the strongest of finishers, like especially in the county hurdle last year. I think he was just a bit weak to the line, and obviously fences gives him a chance to fill his lungs and just find things a bit easier, but that's not going to happen at Cheltenham. And I'm just concerned about his finishing effort as well up that hill again if it's a really strongly run race.
And just to finish off, Django, so they would have had the choice between the Arkle and the Brown Advisory. It sounds like you're arguing that the Arkle is the right choice.
I think so. Like, certainly, because, you know, there's probably one horse to turn over in Madgeborough. And look, don't get me wrong, like, he is a very strong favourite and deserves to be. But, you know, he's a really slick jumper, and slick jumpers sometimes will just nod on the downhill fence or something, you never know. And he's a 5-year-old again. And so, look, at the end of the day, the Brown Advisory probably has more horses at the head of the market. He travelled too powerfully for my liking through the Scilly Isles to think that actually he's going to appreciate that 3 miles in the same way as the 2 miles.
There is always that risk with 2-mile chasing. That's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, fine margins.
Absolutely, and you know, bit of speed, get too high behind, and gravity takes you over on top of your nose. But to me, Django Boy, he has a squeak, but to me, he's the afterthought. So Gino was the choice.
Yeah.
Back to potentially Van Roorke's favourite, question mark, and this is Jaguar for the Jack Richards Novices Limited Handicap Chase. What do you think of him? What's your angle here?
Yeah, so again, all interpretation, but using the jumping data again, like clearly he's an improving horse through his jumping. Like, he's never been a poor jumper, but as you can see, first time out at Wetherby, he's not gained lengths on his rivals. And, you know, he has been improving. At Uttoxeter, he would have got a higher jump index had he not made that mistake at the last. That mistake at the last cost him 10 miles an hour. Like, if he made a mistake like that at Cheltenham, like, granted, he jumped immaculately last time. He got an 8.7. But he's got put up £7 for that performance. So if there was any inkling that he wasn't going to reproduce that, like, he looked turning in like he was going to win as he liked, but he didn't quite win like that in the end. And so actually, if he didn't jump to that standard, if he had a blip like at Uttoxeter or some of his earlier races, he's quite high in the handicap now. And like you've been saying all season, you have to show your hands to get into these races. So.
Do you not think his figures are going in the right direction, though, for a novice, for Jaguar? I mean, each run has been a little bit better. Is that not what horses should be doing?
100%. And I think that's, you know, it's definitely a credit to him. And I think, again, that's your own interpretation, like where we're talking about horses which you might or might not see the value in. And, you know, this is my interpretation of why I wouldn't necessarily back Jaguar myself. But as you say, you're probably looking at that thinking, oh, he's improving and he's jumping better and he's growing up. And actually, why wouldn't he take another step forward? So I think that's the beauty of the data itself.
Okay. The final bit of data we're going to look at involves the Challow Hurdle and a horse pace that might be underestimated for the Albert Bartlett.
Yes, Wendigo was actually really impressive, I thought, finishing second in the end. Like, he made up 4 places in the final 2 furlongs. Like, halfway through the race, you would have thought this horse is about to pull up because he got himself so tailed off. And I think these numbers show why he got himself so tailed off. Like, you can see he was losing nearly a mile an hour on average more than the New Lion. He was taking over a second longer to get back up to speed in his hurdles. And in total, that obviously, you know, New Lion bolted up. Like, I'm not saying he would have won had he jumped better, but he's got an 8-length disadvantage through his jumping. And actually, when you're running over 2.5 miles on a sharp track like Newbury, stepping up to 3 miles, the emphasis isn't so much on trying to play catch up in between your hurdles like he was at Newbury. And you can see here, look, he's finished the race off just as strongly. He's got basically the same finishing speed percentage, but he was just as quick in between his hurdles as well. His top speed was same as New Lion, so he just couldn't jump.
Is that a negative for the New Lion?
Again, over to interpretation, Ruby. I don't know. You know, yeah, maybe, but, you know, look, Harry Skelton didn't press the button until after the last, did he? So.
No, but you're thinking the New Lion, obviously when Dingo was able to get a higher top speed than him, you're looking at the New Lion thinking he is speed. Yet the horse that was never in the shot actually ran faster than him at one point in the race. Yeah, look, we did mention when Dingo after that as a possible for the Albert Bartlett, but I'm looking at this now thinking, final demand.
Well, Harry Skelton has made the argument that he has the speed or the pace to run in the Supreme. Many people, again, on the Cheltenham preview circuit have been making that argument and saying that he could go that way. I have to say I did like Wendigo. I thought he's got game. Paige, thank you for those thoughts. If you want some more from Race IQ, you can go to the website, so racingtv.com/Race IQ Cheltenham, and they'll get all the data that you need, and you can now access this important data. And as Paige importantly says, use it to form your own view. Now, Paige, you're kind of going to stick around while we speak to Dan Barber from Timeform. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm really well, and you?
Yeah, good. Excited. Anyone said calm before the storm? Yeah, I'll be first if nobody else has taken it.
Do you know we haven't managed to say calm before the storm until you joined us this evening, so well done.
Yeah, the prep was more storm before the storm, actually.
Now, I asked you to consider, you and Tom Heslop at Timeform, the kind of thing that punters will be mulling over, some key points for the festival, and whether you can provide some data or some way into it to be able to answer those questions for them. So where did you start?
Yeah, it's not to say this is sort of an exhaustive list. It's some of the questions that people will perhaps be asking, and maybe ones that aren't that popular on the previous circuit or whatever. And one of them is twofold, really. It centres around expected number of winners for trainers based on the current prices of their squad at the Cheltenham Festival, alongside their number of entries. And I say twofold because, A, there are markets about top trainer. There are markets without Willie Mullins. So you may want to stab at who is likely to finish second to the great man. But then there's the other factor of considering each individual runner that they have come Dex time and forming your opinion as to whether actually the data did suggest that this trainer is likely to have a significant number of runners, or in some cases, very few in terms of number of winners as well. So a few things to take from it, I'd say, Lydia. Gordon and Willie have been the behemoths, haven't they? Certainly numerically, but at the moment, this festival is suggesting that Gordon would probably have to have nearly 300 runners to be able to match Willie's expected total of 8. Nicky and Gavin Cromwell very closely matched. Nicky's would have been higher, of course, had Sergino still been on the scene. But then the almost bespoke approach of Joseph O'Brien, if you extrapolated his to the sort of levels that Willie and Gordon are possessing in terms of squad size, then he'd be clear second. So something to consider for the markets outright, but also the individual horses that they run.
Well, let's take a look at the markets, because we've got that. And for Paddy Power, Willie Mullins is 1-9 to be top trainer. Gordon Elliott 9-1. Nicky Henderson 12-1. Gavin Cromwell 16s. Someone you didn't mention there. Henry de Bromhead 33s, along with Dan Skelton 50-1 bar. Is there anything from your analysis there that leads you to a bet here?
I thought Gavin would be a potential value bet to finish second if that market allowed. And for him, it's expected winners suggest that 2.2 he should finish behind Nicky Henderson as the market, which the markets that Paddy Power have done will be based largely on the data that they've provided as compilers to us. But with Gavin, it's having a lot of single figure prices in a range of races. Whereas comparing to Gordon, for instance, who's current second favourite, it's sheer weight of numbers, a couple of short ones, and then a lot of 20-1 chances who still have their chance in percentage terms, but are obviously less likely to win. So Gavin was the way I was siding. I'm not just saying that because you've had him on the show this evening, I promise.
But it's very, very useful that you do say that. This show is not just thrown together. We think about it as a whole, and here is the example of it. Actually, it was coincidental. What was the other thing you were looking at, Dan?
A couple more, because one relates to Ruby, actually, because Fallers at Cheltenham. So not horses
Cheers,
that
Dan.
fell at... Sorry, mate. I didn't mean it in that sense. I really didn't. I meant
That's the way you said it, Dan.
Yeah. Only 3 horses in the last decade that arrive at the Cheltenham Festival on the back of a fall have won. Ruby was on board 2 of those, Black Hercules and Nichols Canyon. Jamie Codd was responsible for Raven Hill, the most recent example, back in 2020. Now, you may think, that doesn't tell us a great deal, 3 out of 107. It sounds very low. What you really want to know is, based on the prices of these horses, how many should there have been during that period. And it is actually quite striking, this. I think we know generally, don't we, Lydia, that a fall on your most recent start does make you less likely to show your form. The data very much backs that up over a long period. But if you were to judge purely on prices of the horses, those 107 horses, there should actually have been 8 winners during that period, and there have been only 3. So it's certainly something to consider when it comes to Lossiemouth, who is highly likely to be the shortest priced horse to run at Cheltenham on the back of a fall in the last decade. So something to toy with so far as she's concerned. And there are a lot of outsiders in that list in the 107, but there are a whole host in that sort of 10-1 to 4-1 bracket. None ever as short as Lossiemouth. So it's something to consider when you are looking to maybe take a short price, given what happened to her the other week.
Definitely. That's quite striking, actually, that. I find that quite illuminating, and it's relevant whichever race Lossiemouth goes to. You've ridden 2 of those horses that won at the Cheltenham Festival off the back of the fall. Talk me through your feelings about that and your memories of it.
I can't remember where Nicholas Canyon fell. I think he fell in Leopardstown. I don't think he fell with me. Black Hercules did, fell at me at Navan at the last in the 10 up, but he caught the top and knuckled over. It was a soft fall, so it didn't cross your mind. But he fell, but it wasn't really a fall, if you know what I mean. He just stumbled over and rolled down. But I can't remember what kind of a fall Nicholas Canyon got.
And generally speaking, does it affect how you? I mean, you can both answer this. Does it affect how you approach the next race, knowing that a horse has taken a fall?
Not for me. You school it. It's how they school.
And Lossiemouth schooled well.
Yeah, and they should. You know when you go back down to jump them, do they jam on and back off? Basically, it's has the fall frightened them or not. So that's what you're looking for at home.
Yeah. Sometimes they need to be frightened as well.
There is that angle as well. And
well, as in they actually learn from the experience to put their feet in the right place and understand what they need to do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. It hasn't worked with El Fabiolo, has it?
I don't think he got the fall young enough.
No, well, yes, you have made that. You've made that point. Anyway, I don't want to distract from Dan. Dan, you're back in the room. Your third point involves the Dawn Run.
Yeah, I just thought this was a good clash that the whole market for the entirety really of the anti-post season has been Maureen on one hand, different background, national hunt bred, heavy ground and soft ground form in winning a bumper, and then a successful hurdling debut, pitched up against the flat types. This is a breakdown of the route that horses have taken prior to winning the Dawn Run. It's not an extensive list. It's those that ran either purely on the flat before they came jumping, Limini, Concertista, the 2 examples, and those who primarily did it in bumpers. For the case of 6.5, obviously, she provides a quandary because she's done both. But I would view her as more of a flat type when you consider the quality of her form on the level, finishing 3rd in an Irish Says, winning a handicap at Newmarket on good to firm ground. And I think with the prevailing conditions, talk of having to water to keep the ground maybe not as testing as we've become accustomed to the last couple of years, I'd say the sway will potentially go with those who have got the flat speed. Quite a culture shock potentially to Maureen. 2 of the 3 winners that came into it having been bumper performers, You Wear It Well, Golden Ace last year, they both did it on soft ground. The only time a renewal, according to Timeform, has been run on ground we described as good, so as quick as it's been during that period at Cheltenham, and probably as quick as they'd ever allow it to be. That went to Limini back in 2016. So I do think the ground as a dynamic is potentially as significant in this Mares Novice, which is a race that doesn't get a lot of coverage than it is in any because of the head-to-heads that the market having you believe. Galileo Dane, one of the X-Flat performers. Paul Nicholls has 2. Jubilee Alpha probably slightly speedier than Just a Rose, but both jump spread types who are going to have to do it against horses that are of a good level of ability on the flat.
Dan, thank you to you and to Tom for your contribution this evening and your contribution to the whole series. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much. And Paige, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Otherwise, it kind of gets lonely in here. I see him every week. You know, it's nice to have a different face, I think. And it's good to hear from you, the Race IQ data. Good luck for next week. And I'm sure it'll be busy for you as well.
Yeah, thank you for sitting next to Ruby, feeding him whatever he needs. So I'll try my best anyway.
I'm sure that'll be fun.
Thanks for having me anyway.
Now, we're going to have a short break, and when you rejoin us, we're going to have a special guest, and I am so excited about this. Stay tuned.
if you had it again, you got beat, you just keep the revs up and just hope he does something at the last.
Yeah.
But for me, my instinct at the moment was there's no stride. So if we'd gone down, we'd made a mistake, or we'd got in tight, we'd have lost as much momentum.
Yeah, which is literally got beaten or not. Like, it's typical jockey to find the reason why.
Yeah,
maybe
but
it is. Maybe there is something that happened mid-race that makes a difference at that nod.
You have to. You should look. If you're not looking as to what I could have, should have, would have,
yeah,
it doesn't mean anything to you. So how are you going to get any better? How are you going to do it right? You have to look and think, if I could have.
So I said I was excited about this next guest. Now you've sorted this out, haven't you, Ruby? This is really good. It's Jim Dreaper.
I had a brainwave. You were going on about nostalgia for Cheltenham, so I went back 25 years and thought, nah, not far enough. Went back 50 years, and lo and behold, we stumbled across Jim Dreaper, Lochina, Brown Lad, 10 up. What a year. Well,
it's such an achievement to win 3 of the big 4 races at one Cheltenham Festival, and that is what happened 50 years ago, and the man responsible for it was Jim Dreaper. Jim, thank you very much for joining this evening. How are you? Oh, we had him on the line a few moments ago.
Hello.
Hello, Jim. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Jim, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
No problem.
And we're just marvelling at the achievement from 50 years ago. Those 3 winners at one Cheltenham Festival, and of course the Great 10 Up topping it all off. Can you take us back 50 years and remind us what it was like then? Because I understand that the conditions were really, really attritional, almost near abandonment type conditions. Is that right?
Yes, I can't remember. I can't remember exactly. What was the first day abandoned?
I think it was. I rang Dad earlier, Jim, and he thought the same. He thought the first day was cancelled, and the championship races from the first day were rolled into the second day.
Brown Lad was there to run in the 3-mile chase, whatever it used to be called in those days. The novices chase, the 3-mile.
The Sun Alliance.
Maybe it was. Yes, that race. And then, but Tommy Carberry, as cute as he was, said, enter him when the weather was so bad, enter him in the Lloyd or the 3-mile hurdle. Now, the 3-mile hurdle took place a day before the Gold Cup, and I think the first day was possibly abandoned, and they put in the 3-mile novices chase. It was to be the race after the Gold Cup. And the Gold Cup was wonderful, obviously, but we actually had the saddle on Brown Lad to go and run again the day afterwards in that race, that 3-mile novice chase, and possibly an act of God, they called the whole thing off.
Good grief. I mean, those are very different times. You can't even declare for 2 races, let alone run into in nutritional conditions. Let's go through them one by one. Maybe we can start with Lochina, who I don't know too much about, and he won the champion chase. So tell me about him.
Yes, well, he was ridden by a chap called Sean Barker, who was, he worked here. He wasn't a top jockey by any means, but a very plucky man. Now, Lochina wasn't very good at counting. He missed a fence or 2 in every race. And but Sean seemed to be able to stay with him when he did that. And I think that's why, I'm not sure whether Tommy Carberry was ever actually offered the ride or not, but that's why that man, Sean Barker, he would have done a lot of the schooling here at home, and a man called Tony Riddle Martin owned him, and he was a trainer himself in earlier years, and he would have appreciated the efforts those so-called stable jockeys go to get. They tend to be left to school the chancy ones, and so that's why Sean was left on him, and he obviously got enough of them right that he won the race. A hardy, not a big horse, a 16-1 by a great stallion that time, a horse called Menelek. They were hardy horses, and I think there was a family, the Courage family. Can't remember the name. There are lots of horses with similar names, and Lord Oaksey used to ride some of them. I think one of theirs was possibly favourite in the race, but I can't actually remember. And but anyway, Lochina did the business on the day.
And what were you expecting from Look I Know on the day? Were you hopeful, confident? How did you feel?
Well, no, you couldn't be really confident with him because of his jumping. If he got every fence right, he had a real chance. And I don't know what price he was, but no, he definitely was entitled to be there or thereabouts if he jumped respectably, adequately, and he did, thankfully, on the day. So no, that wasn't a huge surprise.
And how about Brown Lad? Because he's an extraordinary horse, surely, because he's the only horse to win 3 Irish Nationals as well.
Yes. Well, Ruby's dad, Ted, won a bumper on him, and I don't think he ran until he was 6. He was trained near Naas, near where Ted and Ruby live, and by a family called Osborne. Joe Osborne owned him, and he won the novices hurdle the year before while still trained by Joe's son Paddy. Ruby will know. I can't remember who rode him for them.
I think Ron Barry rode him.
Yeah, can't remember. A chap called John Donaghy used to ride him a bit here at home, but yes, yes, I'm sure you're right, Ruby. Anyway, he won that, and then he was sold to some American clients who had the horses with us during that summer, I think, and we started off. And now the Brown Lad, the chasing wasn't. He wasn't that fond of jumping fences, and he used to lose. He wasn't going to fall, but he'd lose from 10 strides before it till 5 strides after it. He'd lose 5 or 6 lengths because he would slow down. Now, that did work in his favour because he got himself well handicapped because he wasn't jumping properly. Eventually, he got it right. Tommy Carberry worked on him, and he got it right. But it was Tommy's idea to have him entered in that 3-mile hurdle at Cheltenham because of the fear of possibly some races going missing or some days going missing. And it worked out on the day. And as I say, we actually had the saddle on him to run immediately after the Gold Cup the next day. But which wasn't that. I mean, horses did that a bit in the old days, run 2 days in succession. Maybe not the very top-class horses, but ordinary horses certainly did it here at the holiday meetings. It wasn't as unusual as it is now.
Yes, absolutely.
But he was a great horse.
He didn't actually start out over fences until he was 8, Brown Lad.
The first Irish National, lightweight, now 9, well, sorry, I'm guessing here, around about 10 stone, down the bottom. And he won, and then he won, they weren't actually consecutive. He missed a year through a bit of tendon trouble. They weren't actually consecutive years. And then the last year he won it, a chap who was working in the yard, a chap called Jerry Dowd, rode him because Tommy, I think, Ruby will know maybe here, was it Liscargo? Yeah, I think Tommy had to write something for Mrs. Moore, who was training then, Tommy's mother-in-law, Arthur's mother, and so that's why in the last year Jerry Dowd rode Brown Lad. No, he was a top horse, very, very good, but great engine, needed the ground, wouldn't be that desperately quick, wouldn't have done anything on firm ground. I think he was second in a Gold Cup one year on what was officially good ground, just wasn't nearly as effective. He needed something to slow the others down.
And so we then move on to your Gold Cup winner, 10 Up of that year. And there's a Joe Osborne connection as well there, isn't there? Wasn't he bred by Joe Osborne as well?
Joe Osborne bred them both. He did indeed, yes. And sorry, I'm just looking at it on the screen here now, by a horse called Raise You 10, who had been what they call a cup horse on the flat in England. And good, honest-to-God horse. You see these men and horses going to this sense. Ruby knows all about it. Horse is possibly tired, and that's where bravery comes into it as much as ability. Luckily for us, although he won well in the end, the other two just got it wrong, I'd say, because they just didn't have the energy to do it. I think that's Beulah and, not Soothsayer, what's the other word? Inkslinger, behind him, both trained by the great Fred Winter. But strangely, that 10 Up was never as good again. I don't know why. He began the next season breaking blood vessels, and but he did the business on the day. Now I would say, look, I try to be realistic about these things. He was by no means the best Gold Cup winner there ever was. I'd say he was about a 178 horse at his best. I can't remember what his highest rating was, but he was somewhere around about there. But very, very, very honest. that there again was helped on the day, I would imagine, by the desperately testing conditions.
Yes, and I was reading that Fred Winter was saying that those conditions are pretty much unraceable, and you can really see it. We just saw the closing stages there. You can see it in the ground. He had bleeding issues, didn't he, 10 up afterwards? Didn't you take him to Cheltenham to defend his title the following year?
Yes. Yes, and I was foolish enough to ask permission to inject him. And they refused to allow me to do it. I mean, it had happened before without me telling anyone. But because it was the Gold Cup and Cheltenham and so forth and so on, I just requested permission to do it. And all of a sudden we were told, no, you can't do that.
These were very different days. He went on, didn't he, to join Captain Tim Forster and become quite a good hunter chaser?
Yes. Although he always saved a bit for himself. I think, well, there again, Ruby know that. I think horses who are afraid or think they may be going to burst, I don't think they fully let themselves go because they know or fear maybe it's going to happen.
Yes.
So my son Thomas rode a bit. Yeah, I rode a lot of chancy horses up the north of England for a few years, and those bursters, he said, you'd nearly know the head would come up, and they could nearly feel it beginning to happen. Now, vets liken it to, in human terms, your lungs filling up with a liquid, i.e. blood. So not very nice. And that's why horses are intelligent creatures, and that's why they back off a bit. Now, he finished his days, I believe, in the military, I'm not sure, barracks or stables in Hyde Park. He was given to the godson, I think, of the Duchess of Westminster when his racing days were over. And
Captain James Hodges.
He was well looked after towards the end.
Yeah, that's right. The Duchess Westminster's godson, James Hodges, and they won the Grand Military Gold Cup together. Can I ask you, those three winners at the Cheltenham Festival in such significant races, you'd only taken over from your legendary father, Tom, for 3 years. What did it mean to you to have that scale of significant success at Cheltenham then?
No, I was handed everything on a plate. There was a team of men here. When I was away at boarding school for 10 years, they were here every day. And they mightn't have been, there wasn't as much money spent on their education as there was on mine, but they knew their horses. Great head man there, Paddy Murray, and good men like Paddy Woods and so forth. They'd have their own ways of doing things. They weren't the best jockeys in the world, but they'd know when a horse was right and a horse was wrong. There was a great little man looked after brown lad, a man called Charlie Riley, and it's a team, as Aidan O'Brien keeps saying, it's a team game. And I don't know how he remembers all those names, but I could remember them because there weren't very many of them. But you need everyone helping, and those men knew their horses.
And I mentioned your father, and obviously, naturally, one's mind turns to Arkle, the link with 10 Up and Duchess of Westminster. Obviously, your father would shoot me if I didn't mention he trained Flying Bolt as well, so I've got that in, Ted. But Arkle, I mean, the view in Ireland, Jim, is that Galopin des Champs is the best horse in Ireland since Arkle. What's your view on that comparison?
Well, not because I'm biased. I can't honestly say that Galopin des Champs is as good as him. But now Ruby's rode some fair horses now between Arkle and Galopin des Champs. Some of Willie's and some of Paul Nicholls. The one thing about Galopin des Champs, I mean, he never tends to win a race, come to the last on the bit. And workmanlike, I suppose, is a way of describing him. But I don't have we ever seen him really tested when he's at his level best? I mean, has anything got past him when he is on his A game? That's when you'd find out how good he was, or is, and hopefully will be next week. But no, I wouldn't. I don't think he was as good as them, and I would think there are other horses that. Well, the man sitting across from me there will tell you. I think there are other horses in the 50 years since that would have been able for Galopin des Champs.
And finally, can you just remember that third Gold Cup win for Arkle and your memories of that day? Because clearly that is the accolade that Galopin des Champs, as with Best Mate, is chasing.
Not really. I was at boarding school at the time and wasn't even allowed to see a television to watch it. And but No, I can't remember. Well, the first one was the real one, because it was the clash with Millhouse, and the great build-up, English-Irish rivalry. Although there was huge Irish connections with Millhouse. He was ridden by a lifelong friend of Pat Taft's, late great Willie Robinson, and sorry, I'm just watching here. Yes. No, I don't remember a whole lot about that, but I remember sensing through. I'm not sure what do I remember it from the time, or do I remember it because I've heard so much about it since? But there was a fair bit of pressure and expectation, which, thank God, he was able to handle. Now, I was probably the jinx. The only time I ever saw him run in England was the day he got hit the last race of his life at Kempton. So I was never brought again.
I'd somehow doubt it.
Well, Jim, thank you very much for letting us reminisce with you about that great couple of days in 1975. It was lovely to hear all of those memories, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
And the strange thing, going back to that desperate ground, very few horses, it's so different. Firm ground, horses get hurt. But in very soft ground, they just slow down and stop. And it might take them a long time to recover. But it doesn't seem to hurt them. And he would have been trained in similar ground, because my dad didn't have an all-weather sand gallop or anything like that. And it was ploughed fields, stubble fields. As many horses were trained like that in Ireland, and I dare say in the UK. But there were two things I do remember. I remember a headline. I'm not sure whether it was Lord Oakes who wrote it. There were two things prior. Had a champion hurdler won the Gold Cup before then? I mean, basically, Beulah was one of those. And the other thing was, for a long time, the horse who won the 3-mile novice, for years and years and years, many of them pitched up the next year in the Gold Cup, and none of them won it. And I think 10 Up was the first one to actually win it, the year after he had won the 3-mile novice.
Yeah, absolutely. And Denman took a very good horse to emulate him and be able to do that. Jim, thank you very much for your company this evening. That has been a great trip down memory lane. I enjoyed that. I hope you did.
I could talk and listen to those stories all night. I could have had them over the whole show.
Absolutely.
Going back, and I think even Jim's theories about the soft ground and the old days, the way they did things, like, they did so much right, and we tried to change so much, but actually when you look at what they did so much right.
Absolutely, they did. But I'm going to bring you right up to the present now, and we're going to be joined by Jonjo O'Neill Jr. Jonjo, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
No problem at all, Lydia. How are you?
Really, really well. And how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I wonder whether we can gallop through your prospective rides during the week. I'm going to be led by you. Which horse are you most looking forward to riding over the 4 days?
A couple of chances. I'd imagine probably Springwell Bay has got the most obvious chance. Obviously, he's got top weight in whatever race he goes. He'll probably go for the Jack Richards or the plate. He'll be high up in the weights. I think he probably got exaggerated New Year's Day. Really, it was very soft ground. They went a real good gallop, and race probably fell apart a little bit. But if it was last year, we'd be going for the JLT or the Turners, the Grade 1 novice. So if we really thought he could have a good chance in one of them races, then hopefully he should be able to make his mark off near top weight in the handicap.
It seemed like he really thrived off a strong pace, that really allowed him to click and put everything together, because he can sort of pull a little bit in a more steadily run event.
Yeah, exactly. I think strong run races suit him well, and there's a good chance maybe the plate might suit him a bit more. He's had 4 runs of fences, but he's very good jumper. So we keep the options open, but either the Jack Richards or the plate will suit him well. Obviously, he's won course and distance there.
Was there any temptation for your dad or your brother AJ to run in the Arkle with Springwell Bay, with the race obviously going to cut up? I know he's out of it now.
Yeah, we did think about it. He ran in over 3 miles in November. He was too keen, but it was a very false run race. We hacked around. He was second. very, very nearly won in Musselburgh in a Potemkin qualifier last year. He definitely does get 3 miles, but what he needs is a really strong gallop. And, you know, we did think about the Arkle, and he was obviously in the Grand Annual as well. But I think to change back to 2 mile on the tighter track, the ground would have to be quite soft. Obviously, it's going to be... I think they're watering, aren't they? So, you know, we didn't want to change too much stuff. So we thought if he was a good horse, he'd win near enough off top weight. So that's the way we're going to go. We're going to go 2.5.
Okay, I get that. And how about Jaguar, who you've ridden this season for Josh Guerrero and Oliver Greenall? This horse really seems to put his big talent all together in what is traditionally quite a strong race at Cheltenham last time.
Yeah, he ran well. He ran very well at Cheltenham the last time. To be honest, at the beginning of the season, I wasn't sure how he was going to end up. He was a poor jumper. He actually jumped very well the first year I rode him in Maiden Hurdle at Aintree last year. But his jumping went to pot after that. And to be honest, all his performances did as well. When he won at Wetherby, he beat a 10-year-old exposed horse. I wasn't so sure about the form. Was a little bit more confident at Bangor. He beat Larry's Bar, who I thought would progress, and he has. I don't think he was 100% when he won. When he got beat at Uttoxeter, but obviously Jinko Blue won that race, and then obviously he won at Cheltenham. So I think probably his form is actually stacking up quite nicely, and now it's a novice handicap. I think it probably puts him in. His jumping has been his Achilles heel a little bit, but. I was very impressed with the way he handled the track and jumped the other day in Cheltenham. So, yeah, I'd be looking forward to him.
So if he runs in the Jack Richards, will you be able to lean on your brother and your dad and make sure Springwell Bay runs in the plate?
No, they're a bit too cute for that. So they'll run the horse wherever they want. But I do
John,
think
there's no point getting on with all these people if you can't make them run the horses where you want to run them.
No, I can't get away with that.
We're all thinking it, though. We're all thinking it. How about Billy? Tell me about him, because obviously he was second in the plate last year. Jumping can be for his frailty. Would that be fair?
Sorry?
Jumping can be his frailty. Would that be fair?
Yeah, for sure. He's actually a very good jumper. And the first day he ran against Ginny's Destiny last year in November, he actually jumped really well. And when he fell, he actually didn't make a bad mistake. He just knuckled on landing. And I think from then on, his confidence was shot a little bit. He ran well in the plate last year. The plate, probably the form of that, looking back now, probably isn't that strong, so he has got to improve a bit. We ran him in Chepstow this year over hurdles in the Silver Trophy for a prep run for the Paddy Power, but it all went wrong in a niggle when he came back. So he's had an interrupted passage this year, but I do think probably, looking back even to his point-to-point, all he did was stay on. So whether he runs in the plate or the Ultima, I do think he likes the track. He just needs to get his jumping sorted out. But I think what we've resurrected with him in the autumn hopefully might help him.
Okay. And then finally, just a couple to finish off with. You've got Hastings potentially in the National Hunt Novices Chase and Johnny Who in the Kim Muir. Are they both going for the festival?
Yeah, I think Hastings will go for the National Hunt Chase and Johnny Who will go for the Kim Muir.
And their chances?
Hastings had been on the improve at Windsor. Probably wanted the ground a little bit softer at Ascot. Ran well, but caught maybe for a touch of speed. Obviously, the ground is not going to be soft at Cheltenham, but I think 3 mile 6 will definitely suit him. Johnny Who, I think 3 mile 2 will probably suit him in a handicap as well.
His jumping has got to become more assured, hasn't it?
Which one, sorry?
Johnny Who.
Yeah, he's a very good jumper, but he had a couple of problems through the season, which we hope we've resurrected, and we shall see next week.
Okay. Well, Jonjo, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you for your time. I hope you add to your success 2019 with early doors in the Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Hurdle. Best of luck for next week.
Thank you, Lydia. Cheers, Ruby. Thank you.
Cheers, Jonjo. Best of luck.
What did you learn from that?
he's going to split Springwell Bay and Jaguar.
You think he is?
Yeah, definitely.
He was coming... Nice guy.
Yeah, he's an absolute gentleman.
Absolutely.
But if his brother and his father don't split them,
you're talking from your ruthless position.
Yeah.
A man totally without ruth.
That's what I think I do.
OK, we have another guest joining us hard on the heels of Jonjo, and that is Caroline Tisdall, who has got representatives from Britain, Ireland and France this week at the Cheltenham Festival. Caroline, you must be beside yourself with anticipation.
Oh, I'm so excited and so nervous, and it's amazing how it's all happened. Good evening, Lydia, and hello, Ruby.
Hi, how are you, Caroline?
I'm fine, thank you. Nervous as a cat.
Could we possibly start by talking about Final Demand, who is a favourite for the Bearing Bingham, the shorter, the middle of the novice hurdles. He's also in the Albert Bartlett, but it all seems to be tending towards the first race on the second day. Is that right still, Caroline?
Yes, the Turners, yeah. That's what Willie's put him in, and Patrick's very excited by him. I'm very excited by him, and it's wonderful that my co-owner is Brian Drew, both Final Demand and Jericho Rock in the novice chase, the hunt, because we've been great partners over the years, and together we've had our Cheltenham successes.
You have,
Final Demand has been a complete. Final Demand has been a complete revelation, I think, not just to us, but also to the trainer, and it's very exciting.
Is that fair, Ruby?
Absolutely fair. I mean, you watch him gallop at home, he doesn't show a whole pile, but when he goes to the track, he's a different racehorse, Caroline. I thought he was brilliant at Leopardstown, and I can't wait to see him next week.
And that tie-up with Brian, it's been really good. I mean, and Tom Patu was great for the two of you.
Yes, it's fantastic. And, we had our first Cheltenham winner in 2015, which was the champion bumper.
Moon Racer.
Moon Racer, yes. Moon Racer, who had glass legs. He was fragile as anything, but he amazed us that day. And he did some good things later, too. He kept coming up against Ballyandy. They had a great rivalry. And then we had two victories in the Ultima with the same horse, Anton Portu, who was a great little warrior. And that was 2016, 17 or 17, 18.
You were right the first time.
What?
You were right the first time, 16, 17.
Thank you. And we've had a drought since then, so we're hoping to do better this year.
Well, Final Demand gives you an excellent chance, as does Game of Inches, who's now popped up and looks a very talented bumper horse. What did you make of his win at Punchestown?
Well, Game of Inches, Willie says he's been very cautious with him because he's such a big horse. He really is, and he's 6, so he's been brought on very slowly. I think he's amazing. I was absolutely dumbfounded, and Patrick gave him such a beautiful ride that day. It really brought him on. As you can see now, he just looked through his legs and let him go and had great trouble pulling him up.
He's a good horse.
You like him?
Another good horse. Yeah, good Irish horses, Ruby.
I'm telling you, he's a good horse, but he won a point of points in November, so he only came into Willie's after that, and he is quite light. I mean, he could be a completely different horse next year.
Yeah.
And have you been able, Caroline, to go and actually see these horses race in Ireland when they've run?
Well, I missed the Dublin Festival because I got caught in a traffic jam in England, and the police held us up for 2 hours, and I missed the flight, and all the other flights were full of rugger buggers, if you'll excuse the expression. It was Ireland, England, rugby. So I missed that, yeah. But I shall be there every other time unless they ban me for being good luck if I'm not there, which is a danger, isn't it? Yeah.
No, we don't believe in that kind of stuff in Close Sutton.
And it's a good...
I must tell you about my little French horses too, because there'll be trouble if I don't.
Please do. I was going to move on to, first of all, Jet Blue has already got a successful experience at Cheltenham, and it did look as though he was learning in terms of British hurdles on the job. Would that be fair?
Yes, that was an amazing day. It happened to be my birthday. And James Reevely had the ride on him. He had ridden him at home in France, but not on the racetrack. And he discovered pretty soon that JetBlue didn't have a clue about the Cheltenham hurdles. And James Reevely really schooled him on the track. It was amazing. Kept him back for the first 4 or 5 hurdles, let him make his mistakes, and as you saw, brought him on brilliantly at the end. I don't think I've ever seen such a wonderful schooling ride.
And this horse is obviously trained by David Cotin. What has David said about how he's come out of the race and how he's prepared for Cheltenham?
Oh, well, David is beside himself with excitement. They all are. I mean, they're wonderfully excited about it. They keep sending videos of lineups of horses waiting to come to Cheltenham, and it's a big thing because, as you can see from all the entries, there are very few French entries. I think mine are 2, there may be 3, yeah?
Yes. You mentioned Ikeo Madrick and Placenet, who have both entered in the cross-country. How do you assess their chances? It's a handicap, of course, this time around.
Well, Placenet won't be coming. He'll be doing his own programme in France to earn a bit of money. But Ikeo Madrick has been a revelation. It was actually David Pipe who said these horses would probably do better back in France. Ikeo Madrick did really very little in England. He pulled up, I think, 3 times when we had him over here. So David said, send them back to France, see what happens. And Ikeo's won 2 of those amazing Crystal Vases cross-country races. That was his special thing. He loves Irish banks and scrambling around, and I hope he'll do all right in the Glenfarclas.
And do you get over to France to see him in training and racing as well?
Yes, yes. It's so different. It's quite amazing. If I come back reincarnated as a horse, I want to go and live in Chantilly, I think.
I'd agree with you.
Yeah, I think we could all agree with that. And I must finish with the horse that you mentioned.
Shall we all meet up in Chantilly then in the next life?
Well, I mean, the chateau is really ideally where I'd like to live, but failing that, a stable nearby would be fine. I want to end with one of the horses that you mentioned right at the start, which is Jericho Rock, who's a big favourite of mine. Second to Korak Rambler in the Ultima. Start of the next season, placed in the Old Hennessy, the Coral Gold Cup. We saw him back at Windsor. How do you fancy him for the National Hunt Chase?
Well, I love the fact that you fancy him. He's a maiden novice chaser at the age of 9.
Yes.
He won hurdles, but then chasing, he got a row of little ducks. He had 4 seconds behind his name. And then he got jarred up at Newbury in the Hennessy and has had more time off than on. So this is his big comeback, Lydia, and I hope you're really rooting for him.
I very much am. And Jack Tudor on board, is that right?
Yeah, Jack Tudor's on board. I went to see him this morning. I went to see Jericho Rock and my old favourite Villion Rouge. And unfortunately, our wonderful bumper superstar from Pipes is tonight in hospital in Newmarket having his hocks examined.
Oh, no.
Poor wind beneath my wings, It's so awful for the trainers when this happens at the last minute like that, when they've kept their legs in cotton wool for a month.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope he comes out of that well and they're able to sort him out. I wish you luck for all 4 days of the festival. You've got runners on 3 of the 4 days, which is just so incredible. Caroline, thank you very much for sparing the time to talk to us. And I hope you managed to get to sleep in the nights ahead of the festival.
Lydia, thank you. Thank you. Bye, Lydia. Bye, Ruby.
Bye,
Cheers,
Caroline.
Thank you.
So, thank you to all of our guests. It's been a really interesting show, hasn't it?
It has. Could you put Jericho Rock in a relay with Mr. Coffey?
I don't think that's fair on Jericho Rock. I mean, Korak Rambler was the only horse that beat him in the Ultima. And, has he done anything, do you know?
He's still a maiden.
He is still a maiden. He is still a maiden. That all will change on Tuesday in the National Hunt Chase. I feel certain of that.
Mr. Coffey with the cross country.
It will be 2 days of days. Right, we're coming to the end of this show, but we need to tell you about what else is coming up on Road to Cheltenham for the rest of the series. Nick Luck will be with us on Monday for our annual preview. It starts at 10 a.m. It is 2 hours long. We'll have interviews and Ruby and I will be poring over all of the races. There'll be a racing TV column per day from me for Road to Cheltenham, and also Ruby and I will be doing a wrap at the end of each of the 4 days as well. So make sure that you join us for our fabulous coverage over all 4 days of the Cheltenham Festival, and particularly, obviously, the Road to Cheltenham stuff. Thank you for your company,
And
Ruby.
you, thanks.
Thank you for watching. See you on Monday.